Hello everyone, I'm Mahmoudul Hussein and I'll be presenting the World Social Forum and Counter Globalization. I'll start with counter globalization. It's a social movement against economic globalization or capitalist globalization. It's also called global justice movement or anti-globalization movement. Participants in this movement oppose large multinational corporations that have unregulated political power and who abuse this power through trade agreements and deregulated financial markets. They, they also oppose corporations that are accused of seeking to maximize profit at the expense of work safety conditions, labor hiring and compensation standards, environmental conservation principles, and national legislative authority. As of January 2012, some commentators have characterized changes in global economy as turbocapitalism, and they are listed below. Supporters of the counter-globalization movement believe that by the late 20th century, those that are characterized as the ruling elites sought to harness the expansion of world markets for their own interests. This combination of institutions, states, and multinational corporations have been called globalization or globalization from above. In reaction to this, various social movements emerged to challenge their influence. These movements have been identified as anti-globalization or counter-globalization or globalization from below. They oppose international financial institutions and transnational corporations so that smaller businesses and smaller local organizations can grow. They also oppose global neoliberalism as they want to decrease the gap between the rich and poor. They're also anti-war as a matter of principle. Support for counter-globalization remains decentralized. So, to prevent capitalist globalization and aid in this movement, non-profit organizations have been created. These are called grassroots organizations, and some of them are listed on the screen. There has been many demonstrations and protests by the supporters of counter-globalization. Some of the major ones are listed below. Starting with Berlin, the annual meeting of International Monetary Fund and World Bank that took place in West Berlin in 1988 saw strong protests that can be categorized as the precursor of the anti-globalization movement. One of the main objectives was to derail the meeting, which they failed in. In 1989, a counter summit against G7 was organized in Paris. The event was called That Is Enough, and it aimed at canceling the debt contracted by southern countries. A demonstration gathered 10,000 people, and an important concert was held in the La Bastille Square with over 200,000 people. It was the first anti G7 summit. The main political consequence was that France took a position to favor debt cancellation. Then there's also the G18. One of the first international anti-globalization protests was organized in dozens of cities around the world in June 18, 1999, with those in London and Eugene, Oregon were mostly noted. The drive was called the Carnival Against Capital, or J18 for short. The day coincided with the 25th G8 summit in Cologne, Germany. The protest in Eugene turned into a riot where local anarchists drove police out of a small park. And there's also the International Social Forum, first organized in 2001, was the initiative that created the World Social Forum that's going to be discussed later on. The counter-globalization movement has been criticized by politicians, members of conservative think tanks, and many mainstream economists. This is because the movement lacks evidence when it comes to the sufferings of poorer countries, and they are disorganized, unsophisticated, and considered unprofessional. They also lack the effectiveness to help the people and groups in need. They also lack support, widespread support from developing countries, as those countries want to cooperate with multinational companies and develop themselves. The World Social Forum, known as WSF, is an annual meeting of civil society organizations. It offers self-conscious effort to develop an alternative future through the championing of counter-hegemonic globalization. It can be considered a visible manifestation of global civil society as it brings together non-governmental organizations, advocacy campaigns, and both formal and informal social movements seeking international solidarity. It's held by members of the Alter Globalization movement, also referred to as the counter-globalization movement, who come together to coordinate global campaigns, share and refine organizing strategies, and inform each other about movements from around the world and in particular issues. The World Social Forum is explicit about not being a representative of all of those who attend, and thus does not publish any formal statement on behalf of the participants. WSF first met in 2001, but it had its roots in Latin American meeting, which emphasized dialogue and exchange of ideas among activists. Some of the founders of the WSF were part of the first international Encuentro for Humanity and Against Neoliberalism in 1996. They decided to expand the idea and make it a global forum for activists of all types opposing hegemonic globalization and neoliberalism. The beginning of the World Social Forum originated in 1999, where anti-globalization activists protested a meeting of the Trade Organization's latest trade negotiations. Since 2001, the United Nations has had a presence in the WSF through UNESCO, showing the institutional credibility achieved by the forum. Seen by UNESCO as a prime opportunity for dialogue and laboratory of ideas for the renewal of public policies, to critical reflection of the future of societies that needs to be created for elaborating proposals in search of solidarity, justice, peace, and human rights. The WSF has also prompted the organizing of many regional social forums, which include the American, European, Asian, Mediterranean social forums, etc. Most, though not all, social forums adhere to the WSF Charter of Principles drawn up by the World Social Forum. The goal of these forums is to decentralize and allow far more people to engage in the open forum atmosphere of the World Social Forum without needing very much money for travel expenses. All of the various social forums in this mold include international attendees and are in no way specifically focused on the problems of a single region of a country. Even though the WSF has been known for doing good, it has been criticized for being contradictory. For example, in 2001, a number of its activists invaded a company facility and destroyed experimental plants. This was considered by Brazil to be a major loss for its agricultural sector. Then there's the role of NGOs who lobby frequently, and smaller NGOs from poorer countries are not supported as it's not considered attractive. There's also corporations who monopolize in organizing events for the WSF and making a lot in profit, completely contradicting its main agenda. Finally, there are the organizers. These are usually young men and women who attract the younger audience, but what they fail to do is attract older people who have much more power and money and who would be able to support this cause in a better way.